time signature is just a little number on a piece of paper that tells you how far you have to count before you go back again and start at the beginning. So common time 4/4, you count to 4, you go back to the beginning again. It's pretty easy, we all know how it works, we're used to hearing it, we can feel it in our bodies. A lot of us don't put the time into understanding how and why that works, but we really don't need to, because we can just, you know, feel it, man. But if you want to learn more about it, and if you want to be able to pick up rhythms and stuff more quickly, then let's continue with the video and we shall learn. Today we'll begin by exploring 3 different types of time signature. We have simple time, we have compound time, and we have complex time. But this is a lie, it's not that difficult. Here is a simple rock pattern. Dum, da, dum, dum, da. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Dum, da. Dum dum da. We've all heard that before, we know how to play that, it's fairly simple. It also happens to be called simple time, just like this. Dum ta ta dum ta ta 1 2 3 1 2 3, as we commonly know as a waltz. Dum da da dum da. This is also an example of simple time. So simple time is when you can easily divide each beat into 2 parts and then 2 parts again, and everything feels very straight, very even, very simple, for want of a better word. Compound time then is a little bit different. Would be something like this. This is 6/8 rhythm, and we divide it in a slightly different way. Now, this is a little bit of a trick because 6/8 on paper looks just like another version of 3/4, right? It's the same fraction basically, but that's not true in music. 6/8 has a completely different feel. So 3/4, you hear all 3 beats, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. 6/8, you divide it slightly different, and the accents actually happen on the 1 and the 4, and that's because in compound time we break things up into groups of 3 rather than groups of 2, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. Oftentimes I think about this groove actually as 2, but counting in a triplet feel, right? So the same for 9/8, which we'll also come back to later. That's 3 groups of 3. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. And then for 12/8, we have 4 groups of 3. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So that's compound time, and that's quite popular as well. We've probably heard 6/8 at least in a lot of different places. But then we come to complex time, da 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 da, and it's actually not that complex. So we call it complex time because it cannot be easily divided into 2s or 3s. Instead, it's often divided into 2s and 3s. So you can divide it in a bunch of different ways. You have to divide it in a bunch of different ways. So in the example of a count of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can group it as a group of 3 and a group of 2, or we could group it as a group of 2 and then a group of 3, right? It's actually really quite simple. And the way that we can count that to make it easier for ourselves so we don't have to count to a ridiculous high number every time is by borrowing from conical. So for the 3 and the 2, we can say taki ta taki, like this. And we accent here. Taki ta taki taki ta taki taki ta taki taki ta taki. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. Right? And if we group it differently, if we group it like this, 1 2 1 2 3, it would be taki taki ta. Right? We're just using these syllables just so that we can take our brains away from numbers so it doesn't get over confusing, right? Taki taki ta taki taki ta. And then the accents shift. The accents are here then instead. So if we have these 2 different versions, we have the version where we have a group of 3 and then a group of 2, and then we have the version where we have a group of 2 and then a group of 3, like this. We could have, and the accents, if you remember, are at the beginning of each grouping. Put in another colour. So we have an accent here, and an accent here, and then in this case, same at the beginning, but then it's a little bit before, right? Because we're shifting earlier. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the top line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Taki da taki taki da taki taki da taki taki. Bottom line. Taki taki da 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Taki taki da taki taki da taki taki da. So complex time, or odd time if you like, is just when you have to group your rhythm into more than just 3s or 2s. You have to do it in a combination of ways. But that's super fun, because then the higher the number gets, the more you can experiment with how you want to group it. So if you wanted to create your own fun time signature, you don't even necessarily have to use these particular words. You can use pineapple, apple, pineapple, apple, right? So let's see if we have like 3 pineapples and an apple. Pineapple, pineapple, apple, pineapple, pineapple, apple. Actually, that's a count of 8. It's actually simple time, but the phrasing of it, the way that we're dividing those beats, is more interesting. What if we do pineapple, apple, apple, apple? Pineapple, apple, apple, apple. That's 9. Pineapple, apple, 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 pineapple, apple, 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 pineapple, apple, 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 pineapple, apple, apple, taki, da taki, 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 da taki, 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 da taki, 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 da taki, taki, taki. And there we've got 9, 8. And this is where this gets really interesting. So what we were just doing was grouping our 9 like this. Right? This is where there's a little bit of crossover, and why there's often a lot of debate about time signatures, which doesn't matter. The thing that's the most important is that you feel something in your body, you understand how it works and where you're phrasing and grouping things, and then you can jam away. So here's one example of 9/8, right? Taki da taki 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 da taki taki taki. This is really fun, but as you remember from earlier in the video, actually we can group this in a really quite simple way, or you may describe it as a compound way, in groups of 3. Right? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3. And then you've got that nice lilting feeling again. Right, so there's different ways that you can group things to make things feel more or less quote-unquote wonky, I guess. So let's apply all of this knowledge then. Let's put this onto the handpan. What does it look like if we put a groove that is in 5 on the handpan? So if we go back to the original grouping, which was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, in our count of 5, taki, da, taki, taki, da, taki, taki, da, taki. And we put the first accent on the ding, and the second accent on the tack, like this. You'll notice, because it's an odd time, your hands will shift the accent. But if you can feel the groupings, words you want to use, then all of a sudden it's actually as easy as the previous time signatures that we talked about. And again, when you're learning these new times, then I invite you to put it into the context of a chord progression that you're already familiar with, or a melody you're already familiar with, or something else to help you embody it more and remember it easier. So if I replace the ding with a chord instead, replace the second accent with a chord, and then the last one I'm leaving blank. Pineapple, apple, pineapple, apple, pineapple, apple. So every apple is a chord. Pineapple, apple, pineapple, apple, pineapple, these scary odd numbers into their smaller groupings and divisions, actually, it's really quite simple. It's not as difficult as it seems to be a lot of the time. And the only reason it feels difficult initially is because, especially for us Westerners who have had, you know, simple drum beats and pop music drilled into us from an early age, from the radio and MTV and rock concerts and all that kind of stuff, then the odd time signature stuff just sounds new and complex and scary, but actually it's just another way of making music that a lot of us who play the handpan are not familiar with yet. So there is a brief introduction and an overview of how time signatures work. Again, you don't need to understand it to be able to play. Your body already knows how to play these things. If you just hear where the accents lie and hear the kind of melody almost within rhythms and use words to help you, then you can play anything that you want to play. But it helps to be able to pull it apart and understand it a little bit so that then you can take those ideas and create your own versions, or be able to quickly adapt and pick up new rhythms, be able to hear what's going on and join in jam circles. So I hope you enjoy that. I invite you to create your own rhythms with pineapples and apples and see what you come up with. Let me know in the comments. Maybe you can leave your combinations in the comments and I can try and play them. That would be fun. But yeah, have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you maybe potentially here very soon, perhaps.